into the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Homeland on AfterBuzz, Season 4, Episode 2. I am Nando, Velasquez, and I am joined today only by one person, but it's a big one, so it's all good.
Hey, guys, I'm Lexie.
Lexie Hammesfahr, thank you very much for joining me. Danny Hoyt is out on assignment. I don't know what kind of assignment. It's not really Homeland, but...
He's in Canada,
it could be Homeland associated.
Yeah. You never know.
Those darn Canadians. He's on his own mission. And Thaddeus Massey is also unavailable this week. He will be, both of them should be returning next week. So, but it's their loss because this was a really good episode, I think.
Yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I said it was episode 2, but technically it really is episode 3.
Right.
Even though it's week 2 of the season, because the first week they showed, it didn't seem like it perhaps, but they showed 2 episodes in a row. So this one has an interesting name. We never really talked about the names of the episodes last week. The Drone Queen, which that one made sense, and the other one was Trilon and Hammesfahr. And the closest thing I could find out with that one was they were 2 structures in the 1939 World Fair. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, and this one's another weird one. This one's called Shalwar Kameez, which I honestly did not know what it was. I thought at first it would be a character on the show, but then after viewing the episode, I had an opportunity to see this a little bit early and realizing there was no character name. That I looked it up, and it's apparently a fashionable outfit that the women wear in Pakistan, Bangladesh, in that part of Asia.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think is that maybe it has something to do with the whole seduction plot line to the story, because they're very beautiful garbs and attire. So maybe somehow, this is such a stretch, but maybe somehow it relates to the seduction part.
Well, I could see it being perhaps a seduction, but I feel like, and please, you're talking to 2 white people here, so if anybody has any comments or anything, feel free to let us know on YouTube or on iTunes. We definitely want to be educated on this stuff if someone is more of an expert of this. I don't feel that kind of garb is supposed to be seductive. So, because of the culture, the Islamic culture, I don't think they really wear that to really seduce. I mean, it doesn't stop certain women from looking very attractive in it, but I don't think that's the purpose of the outfit. But what I do think, upon thinking about the whole thing a little bit more, I do think what it really talks about is Carrie's return to Pakistan, Islamabad, and perhaps this is like, in order for her to integrate, she has to respect the culture a little bit more. So I almost feel like it's something like that. Like we definitely see in the first scene, almost a mirror image of the first scene in last week's premiere episode, which is her in the car in daytime, this time in Islamabad, telling the drivers, her security detail, where to go, ordering them around.
Right. Yes.
So very, very similar, and demanding to step outside for different reasons, of course. This time she's going she's going back to the scene of the crime where Sandy was found and where they tried to rescue him, and he ended up being beaten to death. And she started questioning the security detail. Mm-hmm. So again, a very interesting mirror, especially when really, I didn't bring it up last week, but I thought it was really interesting to see the first hour start and end, start with Carrie demanding to be let out of the car so she could walk freely, and then the end of that episode really was Sandy, who himself also snuck out to walk on his own, to do his own thing, even though it was chief station, and being in the car and then getting dragged out. Right. So I thought it was a very interesting bookend.
Well, I think it was interesting also because it almost sets the stage in both the first episode, the premiere, and this week, that Carrie's in charge and that she's not going to just be walked over. Yeah. All the time, and she is just like, hey, like, I'm not asking, I'm not requesting, like, this is what it's going to be, you're going to pull over and you're going to let me out.
Yeah, it's her reasserting her power again. Right. And let's talk about we're gonna mix it up. We're not going to go necessarily in chronological order, because I like just getting into the characters a little bit more, but let's talk. I really feel like this episode, the embassy, is a character in itself, because when Carrie returns to Islamabad as station chief, she finds certain regulations. She definitely sees a very different Islamabad station than she was before. You know, it was one thing that her security detail, her drivers didn't want to let her out, and they were very protective of her. But when she got to the embassy, she noticed some resistance from certain people in the
definite resistance
in the staff.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely, and which we'll definitely talk about that. And B, she also noticed the lockdown, that she couldn't move around freely.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that was very hard for her because she immediately tried to go get that lockdown lifted, and the ambassador just like basically told her no.
Yeah.
And that's hard for her and I totally understand that, but she, at the same time, she was trying to like kind of go against the rules, which didn't really help her become allies, I guess, with the people that she needs to essentially be able to trust.
Well, absolutely. I mean, she mentioned it. Actually, the ambassador mentioned that the relations between Pakistani and the U.S. are at an all-time low, and she can't trust having anyone out there. Of course, Carrie's defense was, yeah, we need to fix that.
Yeah.
There's no way we can really fix our relationships with them if we're busy hiding scared inside the embassy.
But that's true. That's such a good point. You can't just bury your head in the sand. You have to get out there.
Well, it's politics, point, counterpoint.
Right.
You can see both sides. I mean, you figure that it's very heated outside because Sandy obviously was beaten to death, and they want to protect the workers there, you know. But at the same time, they also need to do reparations. And so far, we haven't, at least as far as the episodes are concerned, we didn't see anyone reaching out to the Pakistanis. We still have yet to see really any relations between the U.S. ambassador or any politician on the U.S. side reaching out to the Pakistanis.
It's pretty much the only Pakistani person we've really had interaction with is Ayan.
Well, yeah. I mean, as far as a Pakistani, not as far as an official. Yeah.
Right. No, I mean in general. Like,
we
haven't really had any interaction with anyone from the other side in the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, not really anybody at all.
Right. It's been predominantly American.
Yeah, predominantly American. So we still have yet to see really, other than the news reports that we saw last week that they were talking about, and really it's not really about politics, it's just about the situation from these incidents, from the bombing, from the drone attack. Well, it wasn't a drone attack. From the attack on the wedding, and from Sandy being outed and his death. That's all we've really seen as far as the outside world in Islamabad from the embassy.
But also going back, I just thought about this, going back to the name of the episode, which I can't pronounce or remember, but
I say it's Shalwar Kameez, but if I'm wrong, please correct me. I'm willing to accept that.
In the first 2 episodes, we see Carrie, and she goes out without trying to blend in whatsoever.
She just has that one, she just has a scarf over her head pretty much.
But not even really last episode, she didn't have that much. I think there was maybe one scene where she went out with that on. But this time, every time she went out, she had that.
She had
the
that.
head wrap.
Yeah, the head wrap.
So I think she's maybe trying, like you said, to blend in and acclimate a little bit more.
Yeah.
To looking Pakistani.
Because I feel like it's almost like a little hint, like you need to acclimate if you're going to be doing these things like stepping outside at the embassy by yourself, and we get to see that a bit more. So let's talk about this new character that we see when Carrie gets in, because I think he's going to play a part this season. John Redmond, who was the person she was in contact with to set up a staff meeting before she got there, so right when they could start right off the gate, and then she walks in to the station and
completely undermines her authority.
No one is being called in. You see him hanging out with the ambassador, just having a little chit chat, telling him what he thinks they should do. And even during when she finally gets a staff meeting, since everyone's on lockdown, it's really easy to get everyone together.
Right, yeah.
You see him being very defiant and says, "We need to have a chat." And then when he stands up and she tells him to sit down, he stops talking out of respect for the new station chief, but he refuses to sit down. So even in that moment, a moment of defiance for him, and we hear that Lockhart pretty much gave him the job 4 days earlier, just hand wrapped it to him, and then all of a sudden he gets a call that Carrie's in charge.
And he was drunk also, because she said she could smell the booze.
She could smell booze on him, yeah. So not really, and I find that really interesting considering he's just hanging out with the ambassador, who until this episode, I mean the first 2 episodes, I kind of thought she was very,
uptight.
A little uptight, very by the books, Type A, yeah. So I'm really surprised that if he really reeked of alcohol, that he would just be hanging out with the ambassador a couple of scenes earlier.
Right, that was definitely an interesting thing. But maybe they were having a drink together. You never know.
Maybe they were having. I mean, we know she smokes, so
Yeah.
maybe she drinks on the
Chain
job.
smokes.
Yeah, chain smokes.
It was interesting to me though that when she asked the entire team at that meeting, staff meeting, about Jordan Harris, I mean, it might have been out of defiance and not having respect for Carrie like that quickly, but still no one spoke up. And so that makes me kind of question, like, is there a disconnect in her information on Jordan Harris and what they think of him?
Yeah.
Because all we know is that he was some brilliant agent, but maybe there's something actually that they all disrespected about him.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first thing when she first came out and pretty much said if anyone knew what was going on with Sandy, everyone clammed up. So it was hard to tell really at the moment if it was an act of, you know, we don't rat out on each other,
right?
You know, or if we're in on this whole thing, we all knew about Sandy because again, Jordan Harris went back to the States to report on this intelligence leak, and he got grounded.
Right.
So nobody else bothered to do that. So perhaps they were all just going along with the plan. Maybe a few other people know. And I think that's why Carrie's been very secretive herself around the embassy, because she doesn't know who was in on this plan. Besides, she figures Lockhart knew about it at least, but she doesn't know exactly how deep this goes inside the embassy.
And I love that she immediately established that second group with Farrah and Max.
Yeah.
To have her, like, people that she trusted there.
Oh, it's beautiful
Yes.
to see first of all, of course, Carrie being typical Carrie and finding a way out of the embassy, having that little loophole.
Yeah.
Even though the ambassador got a little pissed off that Carrie did that, but Carrie found a way out.
Right.
And then to see her, I mean, Carrie, look, you know, it's really interesting to see when she demands to get out of the car in the beginning of this episode and last week's episode especially. You know, you can't help but feel a little bit nervous, especially after what happened to Sandy.
Right.
You can't help but feel nervous when Carrie is out on her own, but to see her lose that ISI tail, both tails.
That was impressive.
Both tails.
Yes.
Yeah, because, I guess she was aware of both of them. And to see how she was able to play out with those kids going in the taxi and getting those kids as a distraction and sneaking in. You know, she is incredibly capable on her own out in the field. I mean, she was a field agent, so she's very familiar with this stuff.
And I thought that kid scene was just so genius on her part.
Yeah.
Or I guess on the writer's part to have done, though, because there were so many ways that she could have gotten out of that situation, and she just did it so inconspicuously.
Yeah.
It was great. It was cool to see that she used kids as her getaway tool, essentially.
I mean, we haven't seen, you know, the one thing I would say that is lacking so far with Homeland. I mean, I'm really digging what it is, but there still seems to be a lot more setup this season. Obviously, we, you know, see it's somewhat similar to season 1 with the setup, but we haven't really seen anything too major yet. The only real action scene we've seen was from episode 1 with the whole incident with Sandy. That was the big action scene. Everything else, more or less, to this point has been very, very much just set up for what we expect to be a lot of future suspenseful moments and payoffs. So this was probably the closest thing to a suspenseful moment that we had, her trying to lose a tail, which wasn't really Carrie in danger. It was just her trying to get away from these people. Yeah, so nothing really too crazy.
And you're totally right. This entire episode was set up. I mean, there was not a single ounce of action in it, and there wasn't really in episode 2 either.
Oh, and episode 2, the one thing was probably Quinn just beating up on those guys in the diner.
But
that was kind of cool.
That was cool. Yes, I appreciate that.
I don't care what Dar says. Dar made it sound like those guys didn't deserve it. They were being jerks.
I know.
They were
agree.
being jerks.
Yes.
So yeah, and
Danny,
if Danny was here, he would say the same thing. I know.
No, I mean, and as a girl, like, that's totally appreciated that he would stick up for a girl in that manner.
Yeah.
However aggressive it may have been, that was still nice.
So we let's talk about. So Carrie has this second setup, as Saul says later on in the episode, which we'll get to that later.
Yes.
With Farrah and Max. So we get to see Farrah returning to the show, which I'm very excited about.
I love her.
Yeah, she's really great. She had a really great role, and now she gets to be out in the field. But we see her inexperience. I mean, when she came on last season, she came on as an analyst. You know, she was there because she could translate and because she could intercept data. She could read data, because a lot of that, what she was there for, remember, was to trace the money.
Yes.
Was really to trace the money after the bombing that happened at the end of season 2. They had very few people who could do this, so she was brought in as a rookie. So now here's the rookie from last season, still
getting
probably
put into the field.
About a year's worth of, you know, if we figure from last season to this season, approximately somewhere between 6 months to a year has passed. So she's still a bit new, and here she is about to make a really big, you know, a big mission to make contact with Ayan
Right.
as a journalist, and you could see she's nervous. I know
And
she
she's
was
practicing her accent.
She's practicing her accent, which I'm sure. I haven't rewatched any of her scenes from last season, so I'm not sure where the difference is, but I'm sure it's there.
Yeah.
Because Carrie mentions it. But yeah, so we see her being nervous, and even when Carrie makes a joke about, they're meeting with the director of neurology. Oh, the nervous system.
I know.
Which is really
So
funny.
I'm just nervous right now.
Pharaoh's like, why are you nervous? I'm the one. She obviously has nerves, and we see that in her contact with Ayan. First of all, great idea great way to set him up, with a trusted professor,
and in a comfortable situation, seemingly.
But we already saw from last week's episode at the very end, this mysterious figure threatened Ayan and said no more interviews.
Right.
So, which of course Carrie and Farrah don't know.
Yeah.
But so they don't realize that he was told no more interviews. So here both of them are this episode, Carrie and Farrah, pushing this whole journalist from London pitch to try and get him to talk when. Well, they don't know any better, but, Farrah does not do a great job of keeping him comfortable or keeping him in.
Yeah. Well, and Carrie tells her to basically use, the art of seduction to get him, reined in.
I don't know if was it the art. I mean, she says,
it kind of was. It was just casually.
Just casually. I guess it's the art of seduction. I guess she didn't say it.
It's like stage 1 of flirting of seduction.
I guess it's stage 1 of flirting. I guess it's just casually touch his shoulder. I think she said, right, gently and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like something you would read straight out of Cosmo. It'd be like, just casually touch him if you like him.
I love hearing that the CIA actually used Cosmo as a field manual.
They might. I mean. Cosmo is a great source for that.
But we see. I mean, great acting by I'm going to say her name wrong, so I'm not even going to say it right now. Nazine. Great acting by her. I still said it. To actually, she's still nervous, and she grabs Ayan at some point. It seems to be somewhere between trying to be casual and at the same time just awkward, panicked, and we see Ayan pull away. One thing I want to say about Ayan's, I'm guessing this is a character choice, but he mumbles a lot.
He does. It is hard to hear him.
Yeah.
I almost wish we had subtitles on when we watched.
Yeah, we didn't actually. We should have.
Or closed captioning.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's a character choice because obviously he's nervous and it happens.
And shy.
It happens shy, and it happens with the scene with Farrah, and it happens with the scene with Carrie, and obviously they're these two aggressive women who want something, and he really is scared for his life that he's going to get, did something will happen to him.
It's also probably him getting a little bit flustered because they're both obviously two gorgeous girls.
Yeah.
So it's probably a mix of nervousness and being flustered and
again, the culture there. And I think this also ties into the Shalwar Kameez, the culture there. I don't think women can,
be aggressive.
That, especially someone you meet for the first time.
Yeah.
Be that aggressive. And I would feel that, physical contact like that, and what we'll see later on, is really not, appropriate in that culture.
Right.
So I think that's definitely something. But we see that Farrah's not able to seal the deal somewhat and get a follow-up interview, a follow-up meeting with Ayan. And so we end up seeing Carrie taking control later on in the episode. Might as well mention this now because I thought that was really, really interesting, especially considering she talked about the art of seduction, as you like to put.
And to be gentle about it.
And to be, I don't know if that was gentle, but
no, that was not gentle.
It was kind of a little forceful at times.
It was just so forward. It's something that you would never do in a normal situation. And she was just like, let me just stick my hand down your pants.
Something like that. Yeah, absolutely. They're in the, I actually thought the whole scene was weird because I know that he's training to be a doctor, but the bathroom is all the way on the second floor of that cafe they were hanging out at.
Yeah.
And he's going up there and no escort really. He's just going up there with his friend, was that Raheem? I can't, it happened so fast.
I don't think it was Raheem.
It was somebody else, but they just go running right up there and, he's going in by himself, and I just felt like that's kind of weird, locking himself in a woman, not locking himself, but being in a woman's bathroom alone with a woman. You know
what? I honestly, when that woman first came down screaming that there was a crying woman upstairs, I thought it was this whole plot to get him upstairs.
I thought it was a snatch and grab because they mentioned a snatch and grab. Yeah, they mentioned a possibility of a snatch and grab earlier. Then Carrie said, "No, there's no way we can do a snatch and grab."
No, I thought it was going to be with the guy who threatened him from last episode. I thought it was this whole setup thing.
Oh no, I figured it was. It was Farrah or Carrie or something like that. But I mean, that's a possibility too. Yeah. It could have gone either way. So, yeah, totally. But still, it just was, that whole scene just felt weird to me, that he's going up into a secluded area where there's a woman crying in a bathroom and walking in there.
It did seem very unrealistic.
Yeah. In that sense. But we see Carrie, keep him there, pretty much put herself up against the door.
She threw herself against that door.
She threw herself up against that door and pretty much grabbed him at the same time.
Yes.
And they were like super, super close.
I thought she was going to kiss him.
It
was like that heavy breathing, like...
There was that split second where you kind of thought maybe, but yeah, it was just really interesting, really long glance, and it was really, really creepy.
It
Not
was.
creepy.
It was.
I don't know about creepy, but it was definitely, considering the culture, it was a definitely uncomfortable situation for Ayan. And she said, I wrote this line somewhere. I have to look it up, but I'm sure you wrote it. If I didn't.
She said, "If you want to see me again."
Yes.
Gosh. It was basically like, if you want to see me again, then...
Because I remember I played it twice because I wanted to write it down.
You'll never see me again if you don't want to, but you'll want to.
Yeah, yes. But you'll never see me again if you don't want to, but you should want to.
Right.
Yeah, and I thought that was another little telling, like you should want to.
And that was another flirty gesture that she did. Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Unless you want to see me again.
And she's promising him, like, he could train in the States. He can go to the Royal School of Medicine, she mentioned to him.
Right.
That was when he started mumbling again. Probably from nerves.
It was kind of interesting though that she was saying she was from London, and then she was saying she was gonna get him to the US, and she didn't have a British accent. I felt like she didn't really fully think out her story with that, because I think
part of it was an act of desperation with her too. She just, again, she's the kind of person who throws herself into the mix and figures it out later.
She was so proud of herself when he left. She was like smiling and fixing her hair.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think she knows. I mean, he's a young kid, a young
which is
student,
easy to sway, kind of.
And she's, I would imagine that in that area, a blonde-haired American woman like that looks very, very, attractive because she's different. Exotic, exactly. Very, very exotic to the men out there. So here she is throwing herself on top of this guy who's in a prime sexual age, even if he doesn't take advantage of it.
Right.
And yeah, I'm sure he would want to.
And he's like feeble right now and vulnerable. So.
And he's vulnerable.
He is.
Well, he definitely needs someone. I think, he definitely needs somebody on his side.
Yes.
Because he saw last week that Raheem screwed him over by putting that videotape of the wedding on, and we
most
talked about that look.
Screwed him over with the.
We talked about that look. I didn't get that from the look, but you and Danny did, so I'm willing to go there. But I think he can't trust Raheem 100%, and I don't think he has many other people he can really trust. Maybe his other that girl, but even her parents, like he could trust her, but her parents hate him.
Right.
Because of his because of his uncle.
Right.
So I think definitely we'll see more of a connection with Carrie because she made that connection. Fair enough.
Yes, fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. Absolutely. Before we go on, let me talk about iTunes, because we're on iTunes. If you're watching us streaming on AFTERBUZZTV.com, thank you, or on YouTube later on. We tape this on Sunday nights at 8:00 Pacific. But thank you very much for tuning in. We'd love to hear some comments from you on iTunes. We also post on there. Thank you very much for those of you who are listening to us on iTunes, who are rating, subscribing to us. We were one of the top podcasts last week.
We were
under TV and film. Yeah, we got as high as I think number 14 in TV and film. We were a couple behind the actual Showtime podcast account, where they have some video clips of a couple of the Showtime stuff. So yeah, it was really awesome. Love to see some comments. We haven't really seen any comments on iTunes specifically. Love to get that. We have a new crew here, as you could tell, with Lexie and Danny, and Thaddeus will be back. So we'd love to get some new comments about how you're liking the show, how you're liking what we're doing. If you want to hear some other stuff, if you want to hear more Quinn or not, we'll get into Quinn later. Not as much as last season with Lauren.
I am not obsessed with him. I'll just preface it that way.
Okay, that sounds fair enough. But yeah, please, we'd love to hear from you. We'll try and do shout outs when we can. Actually, I want to do shout outs if I can. Oh darn, I had it up. I did have it up. I swear I did. Oh, I do have it up from last week. We had a lot of great comments. So Fusion Love Stories, thank you very much, who just posted 6 hours ago today. So thank you very much. H-Town Kicks 713, Scott McKenzie, Devin M, Coughed 2009, Dennis Boyd, Delta Boy 04. Thank you very much for commenting, and Braggernaut as well. And we do read and sometimes comment, right, Lexie? Lexie's got a couple of comments on there.
I love commenting and talking to y'all. So
yeah, and actually rating us also helps out the network, helps us out to get guests on the show, to be able to call up publicists and get people on. So hopefully we'll be able to get some people on the show this season. We'd love to have some more expert commentary. So yeah, so please rate us.
AFTERBUZZ.
Yes, that's new.
Never heard that.
That's our producer, Sean Overton. Thank you very much. I like that. I didn't know you had an a cappella group, Sean.
We sure do. We just don't use it enough.
Okay, good to know. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Saul, because we get to see Saul. Very interesting. Well, first of all, right before we get into Saul, because this was something that's going to get lost, because you made a comment on it. I thought it was really funny. Who jogs to jazz music?
Yeah, I do not know who jogs to jazz music.
Jogs to jazz? I mean, it makes sense because jazz was something that was mentioned a lot in Homeland in previous seasons. Like Carrie loves it, it's the opening song. But yeah, I actually thought it was kind of cool to see Carrie jogging to some Miles Davis. I thought it was actually not bad.
It was just interesting to me because personally, when I work out, when I run, I have to have like EDM, electronic dance music, Tiesto stuff pounding in my head.
Maybe they just couldn't afford it in the budget.
Yeah, no, it was just, I don't know. But maybe for Carrie, it's a peaceful thing because I know that jazz music and classical music, like you use it in college to study because it focuses you. Yeah. So maybe that's more of what her intention was and not so much to help with the workout.
I was going to say, I think for her, it's definitely a matter of focus.
Yeah.
And I think it helps her focus. And a lot of people run to focus as well.
Right.
So I'm guessing that's just an extension.
I just thought it was so funny that was the music that they picked for that scene.
I think it was awesome. I think the fact that, we both were like, what? I think it's something definitely worth mentioning.
Right.
So anyway, so Carrie's busy jogging around the embassy and sees the security team that she asked Saul to get arrive, and she walks in a little cautiously because I didn't see, I don't think she saw Saul at all before, but she still walks in a little cautiously, and we see Saul just chatting
it up.
Really, like, I've never seen Saul like this before.
No.
He's like talking to the ambassador, and she's all giddy.
And they were both so happy and just like casually in a corner.
They're just chatting away. Oh, do you remember those? Those were the good old days. They were just having this really good conversation.
It's been a while since we've seen Saul that happy.
Yeah.
It was nice, though.
It was really, really nice. And, we get to learn a little bit later. We might as well bring this up. We get to learn later on in the episode, the ambassador admits to Carrie that they were almost married. They were engaged.
And I was going to point that out because when the ambassador walked away and she said that it was good to see him, she was so flirty about it.
She was.
And I was like
I had to do a double take and say, is that the ambassador? I had to be like, really? I had to play that whole scene again at first and be like, is that really the ambassador or is it someone that looks like her? Because that's just weird.
So I kind of almost feel like there's going to be a plot line developing between the two of them.
It's possible.
Especially because we saw the strain in his marriage at home.
Well, we've never seen Saul like that with his wife. I don't think we've ever seen Saul like that with his wife. And we've seen his wife cheat on him as a result. And although Saul has always been faithful to her, at least from those 3 seasons we saw, Saul has never deviated. I mean, the closest thing he ever has to an affair really is his relationship with Carrie, because they're just so friendly that it's almost so like close. I could see his wife being jealous over that relationship just because it's not sexual, but it's more emotional, intellectual. Right. The way they share secrets and the way they talk to each other. But really, really interesting to see this side to Saul. And then even when she walks away, Saul's like, you were lucky to get stationed here with her. Yeah. She's one of the good ones. Just the way he spoke even about her. There was
so much affection.
Yeah. And you don't see that much from Saul. Saul's usually more calculating. You don't see emotion from him that often.
He's usually very cold cut and like, this is the way it is.
I know. So really, really interesting to see that. And again, another scene kind of with the ambassador. We saw her kind of hanging back with Redmond before. And I'm guessing Redmond had some drinks either with her or without. So we see her being a little casual there. Seeing very, very casual with Saul, and then just going up to the roof, chain smoking away with Carrie.
I thought that was great though that they kind of started new, and she offered Carrie the cigarettes. Yeah, it even though I don't advocate smoking, but
No, but I mean, it was
a nice gesture.
One thing about that, yeah, one thing about smoking is it always is I guess a good way for people to bond in a way that you wouldn't expect them to bond. So here they are sharing a vice together,
right?
You know, hanging out up top and being very being very casual. Being very, very casual together, and this is where the ambassador admits that she had a little fling with Saul. We were young, we were stupid,
we were almost married.
We were in Beirut, like that was like we were young, we're stupid in Beirut. We do what
so
young
casual.
Stupid people do in Beirut.
They almost get married. Yeah,
almost get married. Yeah, as opposed to I mean, you think Paris, you think New York. No, not Beirut, but but they almost did. So and then a nice little scene really between the two women, I guess the big women on the show, because the ambassador I think is going to have a major role, being in a position of power, especially a power over Carrie.
Right.
You know, where we see that the ambassador is actually trusting Carrie, and she even says it's not because of Saul, because she at this point Carrie's asking Saul to help her get rid of the lockdown, and Saul says done. And then the ambassador's like, I'm getting rid of the lockdown, but it's not because of Saul.
And I thought that was very big of her to do that. And the fact that she even said, because you were right, we shouldn't be burying our heads in the sand. Exactly. We should be out there. And so she didn't have to do that. She didn't have to admit she was wrong.
No, I think that takes a lot. I think it takes a lot of class for someone to say, you know what, I was wrong. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if it's a case if I was wrong, but more or less that you were right.
Right.
Because I don't think there really is necessarily a right or wrong. I think it's just a way that they look at the same situation.
Yeah.
So, but again, a really good moment of the ambassador trusting Carrie. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we end the scene pretty much with her saying, "Hey, can I have another cigarette? Let's just hang up here some more and just smoke a little more." So we're definitely seeing some bonding between the two. So it's curious to see how far that relationship goes, or if it gets strained in the future, especially with Carrie's, other operation that I'm guessing the ambassador doesn't know about.
Right, and I feel like when the ambassador does find out about that, things will kind of hit the fan. But until then, I almost feel like the ambassador is going to become an ally to Carrie. Mm-hmm. And we'll see her help her in whatever way. Mm-hmm. But I think it'll be an interesting thing to play out, especially if Saul ends up staying.
Yeah. On the other hand, we see, speaking of Saul staying, we definitely see that the relationship between Saul and Carrie, we got to see a tiny bit of them together last week, which was really exciting to see them together.
Yeah.
But we see that Carrie's not happy. Regardless of the whole situation with the ambassador, she's not happy to see Saul. She feels like Saul being there undermines her position. First of all, she has an extra little thing to worry about, the security of a former chief in Islamabad, excuse me. And then also she feels like if he's there, it's like he's watching over her, babysitting her, babying her, that she can't stand on her own 2 feet without having her mentor around, to watch over her and give her advice. So she definitely doesn't want him around.
And I think that it was a really good scene when they were getting brunch or whatever that was in the restaurant, when he's asking her if she's already done, set up the second base, and then I forgot what the other question was, but she had done both of them already.
It was really good to see, now that the lockdown's down, what are you going to do as a free woman? And she says, well, what do you think I'm going to do? And he nails it. He says, first of all, you gotta reinstitute Sandy's networks. You got to get them back up and running. And then, because you can't really trust anyone in the embassy, you got to set up another set of operations and make sure they don't know about it. So I thought that was really, and then she just looks at him like, wow. But it shouldn't be that much of a surprise if you really think about their relationship for the past 3 seasons and what we know of them, that really Carrie was always Saul's protege. So it makes sense that they can think alike.
No, I totally agree. I think that maybe Saul may have come over from the U.S. in the hopes that maybe she would actually need him, but through that scene, he's seeing that she can handle it on her own.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. I think he can't help but he wanted to talk to her last week's shows. We saw him call her and she didn't pick up the phone. Yeah. And she admits that she's been wanting to talk to him, but he's retired. He's quote unquote retired now.
Yeah.
And there's lots of things she can't tell him. So, and it's the spy game. It works both ways. I mean, look, we even found out, she was even surprised to hear that he was engaged. And what was the line the ambassador said? She said, "How discreet of him." It's like,
oh yeah,
yeah. Of course, how discreet of him. He's got to be discreet.
Right.
So yeah. So as of right now, Saul is about to be on a plane. the next morning after this episode ends. So we'll see what happens with that. We got about 10 minutes left, so let's talk about Quinn. I've been saving him for last just because I feel like he's the only part that wasn't really in Islamabad, so he's very separate. So we see he's still with the landlady manager, played by Emily Walker. We see he's very, very drunk. We see he wants to get out of the CIA, and he has another interview after the one last year to get out. But this time, they're questioning him.
His relationship with Carrie.
And his relationship to Carrie is really, really interesting about that. I mean, first of all, they're worried about what he may do, that he may be a little unwound after what he did at the diner. He may be a threat to himself or others. But they keep, it just happened over and over again. They just keep pounding him on his relationship with Carrie and the fact that they blame the fact that he couldn't save Sandy because he was so concerned about Carrie.
But even from the get-go, before they discovered what they discovered, which we'll talk about, but I didn't think that there was anything they could do to save him in the first place.
It didn't seem, we talked about this last week, and from what we could tell, it just didn't, look, we're not trained, we're not trained agents.
We're CIA.
But it looked like you're in a crowd, like two people in a car with like 50 to 100 people, like with murder in their eyes, who want to kill this guy, and it didn't seem like the safest situation to get out and save this guy. So yeah, but it's interesting because we've seen Quinn for the past season or so, and obviously Brody was in the picture, and we saw a little tension in the past, but it never seemed like to materialize. But now it's like everyone's like, I almost feel like the more people keep telling me I'm in love with you, the more I'm starting to think maybe it's true.
I kind of think it's the most telling, the fact that they will not give the landlord a name. Even on IMDb, because that just goes to show that she is not an important enough character in his life to give her an actual name. Yeah. So
it's really interesting. Yeah, and Danny thought she'd have a big part to play, the landlady. I assumed at least one more episode, so it looks like I'm about right on that. She's probably gone now that we saw a little falling out. He kind of like forced her out, but she heard enough to know to even say that Carrie's a lucky girl, whoever she is. Again, kind of reinstituting the fact that there must be an attraction between the two of them. And we see Quinn. We also saw Carrie in the beginning of the episode replaying back the incident with Sandy in his mind, and he's actually keeps going back to the computer, looking up all the YouTube accounts
to see if he protected her,
to see exactly where, if he was able to save Sandy, or if he really did drop the ball, as Dar said in that really threatening moment when Quinn almost lost it with Dar.
Dar was about to die. He was like 5 seconds from dying.
Well, but Quinn held himself back, and then Dar was like, "I knew you didn't go that far off the deep end." But anyway, so from Quinn taking a look at these tapes over and over again, we see what looks like perhaps a familiar face from last week's final moments at the second episode, which is the guy that was threatening Ayan in the middle of the night.
Yes.
And we see him with a comm. Quinn has this realization, at least it kind of saves him a little bit and probably gives him a little bit of relief, because I know he was part of this was also him. I really do feel that part of what he was suffering through was him killing those two men and out in the field and taking these lives.
Right.
So we get to see him realize, I couldn't have done anything because it was orchestrated from the start. There was nothing we could do. It was a setup.
Which in that situation must be a little bit of weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely a weight off his shoulders. He calls up Carrie to let her know. She picks up the phone, says, "I hope you didn't pocket dial me," and they have this realization. So they don't know who the man is yet, but they figure because of the comm that he was using that he might be Pakistani intelligence. So he might be ISI, could be another faction. I don't know, but it looks like that this is the big reveal from this scene, and we're probably going to see a lot more of this guy and them trying to find out more information about this guy. Right. And the last thing we see is Carrie beg, like no joke, beg Quinn back. Say, "I really need you now."
And she was like, "You have no idea how much I love you."
Yeah, at the last line was, "You have no idea how much I love you." I love that.
I felt so bad for Quinn because he was like, "Yeah." Well, and then hung up, and I was like, "You love her."
Yeah, I question whether or not he's really loved her from the start. We see the sexual tension. I just find it really weird that all of a sudden everyone's like, "You love her, you love her, you know you do, you know you do." It's like if one person calls you an ass, it's like, yeah, right. But if five people call you an ass, you might as well buy a saddle because you're going to start believing it. But
I think it's one of those subconscious things. If you are constantly working with someone, then you obviously you have these feelings, and they have that sexual tension, and maybe it just takes people pointing it out,
I guess,
to realize it.
I don't know, but I'm sure we're going to see more about this. He's going to, obviously he's going back to Islamabad. He said he would. So we'll definitely see more. And maybe now that thinks he's in love, maybe we'll see some really weird interactions with her. So we'll see what happens there. And it's going to start turning into a rom-com all of a sudden. That's what Homeland's going to do. No, I doubt that. I highly doubt that. But it's still going to be very interesting to see now that Quinn kind of has this realization what's going to happen. Anyway, that's pretty much everything for the episode. Let's move on to, do you have news and gossip?
Yes.
Yes, let's do news and gossip, please.
AfterBuzz TV News.
Okay, what do you got, Lexie?
Well, since we just ended on Quinn, Gonza, who is one of the executive producers, right?
Yeah.
And Claire Danes did an interview for The Independent online, and I was reading it. It's a really interesting article, but Gonza talks about the relationship between Carrie and Quinn, and he says that he's gotten a lot of feedback for the Carrie and Quinn story to turn into a love plot.
Okay.
But Carrie isn't emotionally available right now, and she's just focusing on the mission.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting. And then also, I saw on the Daily Mail, which is the British website and tabloid, that the White House today named the successors to the millennial generation, which is my generation, that they're the Homeland generation, which is they're connecting to Showtime, and it describes Americans born from 2005 to present.
Okay.
And they're saying that it's kind of because of the unstable world of terrorism that we live in today. And it's coming under fire because a lot of parents are like, I read this and I don't want my kid to be related to terrorism, essentially.
Yeah.
And being in that generation, they're saying it's very creepy.
That's interesting. I didn't know the White House can determine what to call the generations.
Yeah,
so,
I think it was referenced in a chart. It says they put it on there. It says Homeland generation, millennials, X.
Okay.
And so
it's interesting. I mean, I kind of get the Homeland thing just because of the whole surveillance aspect of it, I guess, you know, which is part of Homeland. But yeah, I find it really interesting. But it must be great for Showtime if they, it's better to be the Homeland generation as opposed to the True Blood generation. I don't know.
The Walking Dead generation.
The Walking Dead generation. that will be a
for
generation.
For the love of vampires.
That will be a generation in the future, I think. The Walking Dead generation will be one. Let's move on to predictions.
Okay.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Awesome. So, just a note for anybody who doesn't like seeing scenes from next week's episode, we possibly might refer to them here. So, this might be a chance for you to tune out a little bit. But anyway, Lexie, what do you got?
Spoiler alert.
It's not really a spoiler alert, but we're gonna maybe talk a little bit about it.
Well, I'm a little concerned with Carrie's seduction goals with Ion, and I feel like there might come a point where where she just goes a little too far. Yeah. And it not turns him, but completely ruins.
Well, it's funny that you talk about, that article that Carrie's not emotionally available, but here she is trying to seduce a young kid.
But I think there's a difference in emotionally available and physically available.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. Absolutely.
So I don't know if she's just doing this as her job or if she's actually trying to get some attention from a guy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really curious.
So
well, I mean, I think definitely that's going to have a big part to play, her seduction. We might as well call it the seduction of Ayan, and see exactly where that goes. Yeah. Hashtag, right? There's a hashtag for you. I mean, look, I just feel like Saul's not leaving. I feel like it'd be just so weird to see Saul do the rest of this storyline from the States. So I definitely see Saul staying. I really feel like there's going to be some more scenes with him and the ambassador. It just seems like they're going to hook up. I really think, you know what? We need to see Saul in a situation like that. He's just not happy with his wife. And I hate to say it, because I Saul's such a good guy and I'd hate to see him, have an affair in a way.
Right.
When she was the one that had the affair, she was kind of the bad person for a little bit. And now he might be the bad person. But I just feel like there's definitely too much. It's just too casual, too much
I just want to see him happy because he's not happy in the private sector. He's not happy with his wife. So this is his one chance to be happy and have everything.
And I think John Redmond is definitely going to be a factor in undermining Carrie in the embassy. He might even be in on Sandy's leak. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Redmond.
He was so defensive.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, Lexie, where can we find you during the week?
You can find me on all social media at Lexie Hammesfahr.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nandovel, Nandovel. You can also find us on various AfterBuzz shows. I'm doing Walking Dead in just a few minutes, and Scorpion and Blacklist, and you're doing.
I'm on Dance Moms for one more week, and then Parenthood.
Awesome, sounds good. So yeah, check out all of our AfterBuzz shows. But if you want to tune into Homeland, you can check us out next Sunday at 8 o'clock Pacific, when we'll be previewing or recapping episode 4.
And everyone will be back.
So looking
Full
forward to
panel.
hearing from you then. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.